Hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to this special edition of Telia Connect to Society. This time a part of Digitalising in Stockholm 2021. We have a very interesting panel discussion here today. We're going to talk to you about how technology can help transform public housing. And this is, of course, a very important piece of the puzzle to create safe and sustainable cities. And with me here today, I have three gentlemen who are experts in this field. I have Mats Axelsson from Telia, who works with smart buildings. I have Dennis Vedin, Vice Mayor for Housing and Real Estate in Stockholm. And I have Carl Ståhle, who is a digitalization expert and also representing public housing in Sweden. But before we start, let's give this some context. Often when we talk about digitalization and we talk about buildings, we talk about smart buildings as some sort of a goal. But what is a smart building? Let's give this a frame. And to help us with that, I thought we would watch a film that we have done with one of our customers, Rikshem, who is one of the largest private property companies in Sweden. So let's roll that video.
Ska vi lyckas med att få smarta städer i Sverige, då behöver vi ha smarta fastigheter. En smart fastighet är en fastighet som ger oss möjlighet att ha full kontroll på hur fastigheten mår och går och står. Det är en fastighet som våra hyresgäster har allra bästa förutsättningar att må bra och leva i. Rikshem är ett av Sveriges största privata fastighetsbolag med 30 000 lägenheter från Luleå i norr till Malmö i söder. Rikshem gör just nu ett stort digitalt lyft utav uppkopplingen av våra fastigheter. Och det handlar om tre saker kan man säga. Dels så vill vi få in ett riktigt kvalitativt nät för våra hyresgäster där de själv kan välja nätleverantör. Det andra är att vi passar på att koppla upp alla våra fastigheter och alla underdriftscentraler och all utrustning som vi har i fastigheterna. Och det handlar om att vi på sikt ska kunna få en bättre och mer proaktivt möjlighet till fastighetsskötsel. Det tredje är att vi passar på direkt att sätta in sensorer i alla våra lägenheter. Och det är jätteviktigt för oss att vi ska kunna få den möjligheten att ta tillvara data, inte bara från fastigheterna i stort utan också från enskilda lägenheter.
Great, so now we all know what we're talking about. So in the film they talk about three major areas to define a smart building. A smart building provides connectivity to its tenants. A smart building is also connected, the building itself and its system, to be more efficient. And a smart building also has installed sensors to improve facility management, but also to improve the living conditions of the people living in the building. So now I turn to the panel and I ask you, how smart is your building? And now, of course, I'm talking about your house, right? Have you got one single app that can control everything in your house? Or are you still using wide broadband? So, Dennis, I'm going to go to you first. How's your smart building?
I have a strong broadband, but actually I just use it through my phone. So I think it's too strong. I don't need it to be so strong as it is. But I actually can change on my refrigerator. I can, through an app, change how cold it is in the refrigerator. And I'm very happy about that.
Perfect. How about you, Mats? How smart is your building?
Yeah, maybe not the smartest in the country, but one thing that I've done this year is actually to connect the floor heating system to the weather forecast. So I can actually control the floor heating 1.5 days ahead, depending on the outside temperature, and that seems to be saving quite a lot of energy.
Energy optimization, I like it. How about you, Carl?
Yes.
Well, I have a little bit of both. I have an architectural background, so I've designed my own house. But so I have solar cells and electric car vehicles, so I can control those issues with an app. But I also have what I call a standby mode. So how does the house function without internet connection and without electricity? So, and I think that's sort of both on and off. in a way when it comes to control.
Wow, Carl, to be able to actually go off the grid, even though it's only temporarily, that's really taking this to the next level. So, Stockholm has a vision of being the smartest city in the world by 2040. And Dennis, I thought I'd ask you this first question. What challenges in society around public housing can you see that technology and smart buildings could help address?
Yeah, thank you for an important subject. I'm of course very proud of Stockholm. I'm talking to you from the Stockholm City Council Hall, and we have a very ambitious goal when it comes to being smart and to being connected in Stockholm. And our housing companies has a strong role in this. I'm actually very happy that when we started to building our housing companies, we actually have fiber in them. So we have a very strong connection in Stockholm, which gives us a very good opportunity for the future for our tenants when it comes to being connected and being a part of development. I would say, to answer your question, to be smart, that has to be able to change, be a part in a developing world. And I think we actually have a good basis for that in Stockholm right now.
Super interesting, and I love that you actually take the opportunity to include the tenants and their way of interacting digitally as well. We asked facility owners in the Nordics and Baltics about these challenges in terms of barriers to execution. And they talk about energy waste. They talk about lack of oversight of the building infrastructure. They talk about security, insufficient use of the building, but also they see a challenge in competition from more technically savvy newcomers. And they didn't have tenants as one of their main challenges, but I think that could be the next step of getting past these first challenges. But I thought I'd ask you, Carl, in terms of public housing companies, do you think they share the same type of challenges, or are there differences?
I think they're mainly the same. We're all property owners, so we need to be more efficient with how to maintain the houses. But our big problem is to get all our tenants connected and connected wireless, because we use wireless phones and wireless products all the time, and also when it comes to the sensors. So helping our tenants to get more services that are coming now into our houses or into our homes, like Medicare, digital Medicare. We have now school going on distance because of the corona. Those kind of digital functions we need to be able to provide, and the fiber that Dennis is mentioning is a fundamental basis for this. And we have done that work, but we have a lot more to do.
Yeah, a great then the view of the tenants. I really like where this is going. But so Mats, then you work with IT and connected buildings on a weekly basis. How would you say that technology can help address some of these challenges that Carl and Dennis mentioned?
Yeah, super good question. I think starting a little bit from the vision, of course, all the facility organizations and tenants want to be sustainable, and including the operations in the building organization and so forth. But to be able to do that you need to have stable infrastructure, like we heard about, stable connectivity, and of course everyone needs to have connectivity. So terminology that has started to go around is being digital native. And what it means is that the building or all buildings have the correct infrastructure to become smart. And that could be, for example, reliable connectivity. It could be that the data that is available in the buildings is possible to connect to and use the data to digitize things. And the whole technology is summarized a little bit in connectivity, maybe perhaps IoT platforms, and of course security. It's not that buildings are not connected today. They have been quite connected for many years, but maybe not with the highest security level. And on top of that, then using analytics to actually turn the data into useful information that creates value both for the facility organization, but not the least also for the tenants itself. So those elements in the digital native landscape is needed to enable actually the smart building in the end.
That's great. And also it seems like you're talking on the same theme here as Dennis did in the beginning in terms of digitization is actually to be able to be flexible in the future, to be able to do what it takes to stay with the development. And I also, Mats, you were talking about data and you're talking about optimizing. So I thought I'd also talk a little bit about other types of data that you can use even earlier in the cycle. All of this, we've talked about what's happening in the building itself. But of course, what I work with every day and what's very close to my heart is movement data. And we can use movement data to see where to place public housing. We have, from Telia, we have a crowd insight service which uses anonymized and aggregated data from our mobile network, where we can follow bigger movements in society to know when we plan a new part of the city where to best place public housing. And the same data can also be used by public transport authorities and operators to make sure that we have the mobility needs for the people living in public housing. So data always very important to keep in mind. I could go on all day about this, but let's go back then to the reality, right? So we have established a potential with digitizing public housing, but where do we actually stand today? From a kind of political standpoint, Dennis, have we moved any closer to the 2040 vision?
Well, I would say maybe yes and no. It's I think the big problem for public housing companies in Sweden, at least, is that we have public procurements for new digital solutions, and I think that's quite a problem. It stops us from being as creative and fast in this ever-changing society that we need to be. I think that hinders us from having new technological developments of our own. It's not an example when it comes to housing, but everyone that lives in Stockholm, if you are a parent, knows the school platform, and that is a public procurement that actually is a pretty big public hard system that's not very user friendly, and it's a main topic in Stockholm right now. And I think it's an example of the difficulties we have when it comes to being technically creative. But you mentioned artificial intelligence, and I think that's just a very, very important subject for us when it comes to meeting the future. Energy optimization of district heating is good for the environment, it's good for taxpayers, it's good for our tenants, and it's a technology we're testing right now as a first few steps. So I think we're standing strong, but we need to be more a part of the ever-changing technology system.
Yeah, I think energy waste seems to be on everybody's agenda right now, which of course it's good for everybody, as you say, and for the planet. And if I move to you then, Carl, do you think that public housing companies are they capturing the benefits? And would you say that they're on par in terms of this if you compare them to private housing companies?
Some are, and some are in different fields. So we have brilliant examples of companies that are really ahead on AI. We are other companies that are really taking into account of sharing energy within the city. Taking use of mobile electric cars, and their batteries to help supply for the energy in the house. So there are a lot of good examples, but in general, we've been sort of taking care of investments that have a 100-year cycle. That's a building. And now we are into iterations of 3 months in a digital world. It's a totally new way of management. And the data management of being able to share data, we have not gone so far in the knowledge nor in the sort of in the HR aspect of this. We need more competence from the data industry into the housing industry. Otherwise, we can't take this step.
I think that's a really good point, actually, to be able to know what to do with all the data as well that you're collecting, and to make sure that you know how to optimize this in the best way. And Mats, then from your perspective, in terms of the technology, how far would you say that we have come in the smart building vertical?
Yeah, I think a little bit. It's a matter of the size, quite many times of the facility company, but many RFPs and many customers that I meet on a daily, weekly basis, they are actually focusing a little bit on starting bottom up. Of course, they identify what is the actual need in the end that they want to realize. But to be able to do it, they need to have the right infrastructure in place. So most of the customers are actually starting by creating this foundation, the digital native foundation, with connectivity to all buildings, IoT platform, data management, so they can do something with the data. And of course, security is part of all of this. And that is usually a little bit a starting point on the digitization journey, because you need to see this as a journey. You can't do everything from 1 month to 6 months later. It's a journey from start to end. So I think many of these facility companies have actually started in a very good way. They understand that they need to have a foundation to build. You can't build a roof until you have the walls and the ground in place.
And if you look at some of the barriers, when they get started, what are the barriers that they need to overcome?
Yeah, that is actually one of the most common questions I receive on a weekly basis: how to get started with smart buildings, how to monetize on it, and how to actually scale the service delivery both for tenants and internally. But I propose to make up a digitization plan, so you know why you're doing things and you don't do it just because you can from a technology point of view. And then another challenge or barrier is that there's a lot of data silos in the building industry. You have maybe bought or built buildings over 20, 30 years. And in every new building, there's a new control system for the building. So many of the data points is not available in a common, easy way. And that is also something that many of the facility companies are looking into. How can they integrate all the different subsystems into one data source or one data lake, for example, so that it's easy to collect data, turn it into value, and then monetize on the data itself. And that will lead later on, for example, to automated energy efficiency systems or processes. So that is a little bit most of the barriers that I meet on a daily, weekly basis with customers.
I think that's a really good point, and it ties back to what Carl said as well about the 100-year cycle of a building. We can't just cater for new builds, right? We have to make sure that we cater for all the buildings we already have there, and they might be connected, but they might be old, and we need to have solutions that can span over new buildings and old buildings. And I think that the data silo problem we see in all verticals nearly. We have, the transport sector have got the same problems. So we need to find, ways that we can just get past those. And how do we do that? How do we actually get started then on the digitization journey? And again, I turn to you, Dennis, for more about, the overview political initiative. Have you got any initiatives, maybe within the 2040 vision, that could help public housing companies to be more digital?
Yeah, all our companies have change, innovation, and sustainability high on the agenda, and we need, of course, to collaborate with the industry. For example, through the interest and industry organization Public Housing Sweden. That actually is very good on this subject. They have a digitalization initiative, for example, which I think is very, very good, and we're trying to accelerate the issue through this. For example, one thing we have tried is when it comes to artificial intelligence, look, for example, on the customer satisfaction and use it in a sort of a creative way when it comes to meeting our tenants' needs. So I think we can use this technology more in the future, and we can also help each other across the nation in our public housing. We all share the same difficulties, but of course, I can't stress enough the public procurements is a very tough thing for us public housing companies when it comes to trying to stay creative.
Yeah. And Carl, then, from your perspective, what steps do you think that public housing companies could take to accelerate the digital journey? I know that your organization is driving this new concept that we call KO 2.0. Can you tell me a little bit about what it is and how if you think that could be a vehicle for easing up this journey?
No, absolutely, but I'd like to start with complimenting Dennis, because he understands the value of our initiative, our digitalization initiative, which has the whole aim for that program is to accelerate digitalization within the housing organization. So and we are really on our way here, and KO 2.0 is or the second version of our new business model is how can we provide with services that our tenants really need, but also how can we open up so that other companies can provide services that we as a property owner need to maintain or to supply our properties. And we cannot do this all by ourselves. So we need connectivity. We need management of data. We need to share our data so that others can come and innovate with us, because we cannot do this by ourselves. It's not possible to work in a silo of the property industry even. We need to go beyond the property industry. So we think that we have some of these things on the roll, but it's a long journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to hear that you still feel that you've got some way around this, though. Mats, really quickly now, because we're running out of time. What would you say that we should not, the steps we shouldn't take? Is there any obvious pitfalls that the public housing companies shouldn't fall into?
Yes, absolutely. And that is probably not to try to do everything on its own. I would say that working with partners is a super good start. We spoke about different type of pitfalls or challenges in the past, but trying to start with things that you can do on your own is a good starting point, describing the digitization journey and the digitization plan and so on, but then also trying to identify partners that has already done this together in other areas. So you can work with partners for infrastructure, connectivity, and then maybe another partner for analytics, and maybe a fourth or a fifth one for energy optimization and so on. And by using more of an open partner approach, then first of all, you're not locked into single supplier, but then also you can speed up the whole digitization journey a lot by working with several partners solving different challenges on its own.
Yeah, I think that's a good. We're always stronger together in this sense. I would agree. So I'm going to round up now this discussion. It's been super interesting, and for me, I think as well as for the listeners, very useful as well. We have talked about the potential. We've talked about, that we have to, in this journey, include the tenants' digital needs. We've discussed some steps to take and perhaps some steps not to take. And I'm very sure that it's not the last that we will hear from these gentlemen on this very interesting topic. So I would like to thank you, all three of you, Dennis, Mats, and Carl, and also thank you to you who's listened to this special edition of Telia Connect to Society, a part of Digitalising in Stockholm 2021. Also, a heads up for all the other keynotes and interesting panels within the event. Have a look and don't forget to join them as well. Have a great day and goodbye.